Edwina Dunn, what an absolute honour to be speaking to you today and hearing all about your exciting life. I actually look at you and I see a woman that has made real change, historical changes. And through the work that you're doing with Female Lead, I feel that in the next few years, we're going to see a massive change in the way women are interacting and bringing a community around the female lead that will create the changes that we need as women. And I think you're at the forefront of that. Tell me, what is your mission and what are you achieving and about to achieve for the female lead?
Well, first of all, thank you, Rosemary. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. And you're exactly the type of woman that I want to celebrate across the world because of what you've done. So you're part of this journey. So I think the central idea behind the female lead is we rise by lifting others. It's a really simple concept, but really what it's saying is that your success does not rely on someone else failing or not following in your footsteps. The more we can put out a helping hand to others, particularly women who need that extra helping hand, I think the better the world's going to be. There are not a set number of places for women, which means we have to sort of pull up the drawbridge behind us.
Yes. The female lead intrigues me. Can you tell me how that was set up?
You know, it is the hardest question I get asked, Rosemary, and I've had a good life. I'm still having a good life. I've had a great career and I've made some money. And I wanted to keep doing something. I wanted to keep contributing. And I've learned that the more you do helps other people. It sounds a bit yuck, but I mean,
But it's true.
You know, the more that you help other people, the better
Yes.
you feel. And actually, it was something that I could do. And I thought about it very hard. And, you know, my whole thesis was you can't be what you can't see.
Yes.
You know, if you don't see people in a role where you could say that could be me, or
Yes.
I want that to be me, or I really admire that person, it's very hard for you to find inspiration. It's still men first. And so I wanted to reverse that. And not because I have anything against fantastic men. I mean, of course they're brilliant. I just wanted to equalize it.
Yes.
So that really became my mission. And I just started with a simple book, which was just a celebration of 60 women. I mean, people have said from the beginning they liked the book and the films that we created. It was very elegant. It was very sort of Vogue-like, you know.
Beautiful.
And we donated that to schools and colleges. And they appreciated it because they said, we don't normally get books this beautiful. And then everything grew from there and it just became more and more.
So big data, you've done big data, you've worked at Tesco's, you did their club card, you did all, how did you get into that?
I was very lucky and I got offered a job in an incredible company. I mean, it was my great good fortune. It was an American software consultancy, very grown up. And I joined a tiny part of it that was based in London. So most of it was in Washington, DC. It was a naval contractor. And then I joined this really little outpost and they were doing early big data. That big data was census data, which is, you know, where everybody lives and works. And that's really where I learned my craft. And
were you one of the few women, Edwina, there?
There were so few women in the organization, but it was one that taught entrepreneurial skills at a time where no one else did. So
yes.
I learned in a way that I think people were rarely taught back then. And it was a true meritocracy as well.
Yes. So you were ahead of your game, really, because that was really quite new, wasn't it? What you did, it was pioneering the work you were doing, really, then, wasn't it?
It was really new. And we were sort of evangelists. We'd tour the country telling everybody that, you know,
Wow.
we could help them site, you know, Marks and Spencer's in a better location, or, you know, a building society or a bank, and we'd be able to automatically give them the numbers of people living and working and traveling in a kind of 5-mile radius of a particular point. So it's very, very exciting. And it makes me sound like I was born in another century, but things did change incredibly quickly. And I remember that the press would talk about, you know, they would call me big sister as opposed to big brother. It was describing people by where they lived, you know, that idea of birds of a feather flock together.
Yes.
And then when we moved on to supermarket data, Tesco, it was you are what you eat or what you buy. Eventually we moved on to social media data.
Yes.
Is you are what you love.
You set this up with your husband, didn't you?
Yes, we set up a company called Dunn.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
it was that business that really then allowed us to kind of introduce this science of, you know, you are how you're described by your data.
With the data that you were collating for Tesco's, there must have been a lot of information that you saw with different women and the types of women and what they put in their family shopping. Has that helped you in Female Lead now, of collecting the data from those women and what they were buying and etc.?
I think what it taught me is that real people are infinitely more interesting than invention. The stories of real women almost go beyond your imagining. I think what I relied on was the fact that if you study millions of people,
Yes.
you know, some of the stories that come out are quite remarkable. You know, I worked in an industry that was incredibly male dominated, and, you know, every boardroom I went to, even though 70+% of women did the shopping, they were all really run by men all over the world. So it kind of interested me that there are presumptions about what women worry about, what they feel strong at, what they feel weak at. And many of them are just plain wrong.
Yes.
And actually, they're kind of myths and inventions that live on and are perpetuated by storytelling. You know, women are not ambitious. Women are not confident, or they're held back by imposter syndrome. This just isn't true. Women will quite often use imposter syndrome to actually steel themselves, work harder than anybody else, and push forward stronger than anyone else. So we have to have a situation where women are the best ambassadors for other women.
What would your day consist of?
A lot of what I do is still technology. So what we're trying to do at the moment is say, you know, let's understand what it is that women feel strong at individually, or perhaps a little weaker in. And then how can we offer each and every one of those women some content that is inspiring and helpful? And very importantly, that is free. I really want to curate and bring together the kind of independent analysis of a person with the independent best in content. Women would benefit enormously by something that was tailored for them, because so much in the world is written and created and for men.
Yes, indeed.
And that's really that you know, where I want to readjust it. This is for women, about women. The moment where everything's changed for us, which is really special, is when the social media networks, so people like LinkedIn and TikTok, have suddenly realized that we've grown an audience organically in a way that they've never seen before.
Yes.
And that we are actually a force for good. We're good content. We're not
negative. Yeah, and it's all
sort of
positive. Yeah.
a joke or a dance or
Yes.
something like that. And so I think the challenge we have is telling the same story. So you're a filmmaker, you're a TV program creator, and you know how to make a film interesting and draw you in. What we're trying to do is work out with different content what's the best way of getting the message across and drawing people in so that it actually resonates.
For me, in television and working, particularly over the last few months, hearing the stories of these incredible elitist female athletes, all Olympians, hearing how they struggled, that they couldn't, it was impossible to get any sponsorship as women, get any viewing time on TV platforms. And that still is very slow to happen. I've worked with diversity of women on Power of Women, whether it be from Gloria Allred to Rose McGowan to Jane Goodall, across the board. It is still very hard for me to get my work commissioned in the same way that a man would. And it's not fair. And it's changing. And I've seen a big change over the last couple of years, 2 years. But we've still got a long way to go.
You know, if I was a man, I would feel embarrassed
Yes.
if a sportswoman, top of her game, was paid massively less than anybody in my ranks. I would feel embarrassed about that. And I think that will happen. That will happen.
Yes, it will. And I feel sport is a very good way to make change. And if we get equality in the world of sport, that's when I feel we will see the biggest shift. Who or what drives you, Edwina Dunn?
Honestly, I don't know. I wake up every morning and go, what am I going to do today? I think it's addictive in the way maybe people find drugs addictive. I'm addicted.
Me too.
To the adrenaline of doing something exciting. I wish I could play tennis or ride dressage champion horses, but I can't do any of those things. So this is my equivalent. This is my adrenaline rush, and I'm addicted to it.
I absolutely can relate to that. With a lot of young women watching you or listening to the things you're getting up to, what do you ever try and instill into them about having their own career, their own stamp on society? What message would you give them?
I would encourage them to take the lead in their own life, to not feel that someone's mean to them or someone's not given them the break that they need. My encouragement would always be, you know, you're going to have good days and bad days. And actually, you have to ride those waves. You have to go, I had a really bad day, but tomorrow is going to be a good day. And that is where you're building resilience. You're kind of building that memory, that muscle of it's bad, but it's going to get better. And there really isn't, I don't think, much of a secret beyond that. Being lucky, forging ahead and making a difference is really where you get slightly more right than you get wrong. But boy, do you get a lot of things wrong. Yes. And boy, do you have some really bad days. I do.
Oh God, you're not the only one, I tell you. I've been saying. Now, with the female lead, it's very powerful. I can see the energy behind it, and I like that.
I love that you see that, Rosemary. I love it because I think working in a man's world, which you do as well,
yes,
you learn that you have to approach things in a very systematic, organized way. I mean, you know, most female entrepreneurs find it much, much harder to raise money. You know, when I see something that I don't think is fair, I have a very strong reaction to that. And I think they don't understand that the reality they imagine is just not the reality. And, you know, you often get this amazing moment with very clever, very powerful leaders who will suddenly go very quiet and go, I've got a daughter.
Yes.
And the penny suddenly drops that this world that we're describing as sort of tilted in slightly the wrong direction is not much fun. It's a systematic, real perseverance to find the good and the opportunity in everything. I come from a world of data and science, which is really unglamorous. And you come from a world of TV and films and producing. And I think when you start to bring those things together, that's when I think we can really do some exciting things.
Well, I hope to work with you on the next Power. Well, I'm sure we will, together with the next Power of Women series. And we have some incredible women. And I'd like to see the female lead put its input in how we can get more from those shows, rather than just the conversation about their journey, but also what's the next part. With you working on all these different platforms, for me, that's where it's going to really kick in and make a big change. And I will do everything to bring in any woman that I know to support the work you're doing. Edwina, thank you today. I feel rejuvenated, because sometimes we get a little bit tired or we get a bit flat, and talking to you today has really lifted me up. And you are the female lead, and myself and other women that know the work you're doing are incredibly proud of you. And thank you very, very much for joining me today. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Rosemary, that is incredibly kind, and from you I take it as a huge compliment. You're awesome. You're awesome.
Oh, gosh,
and it is so lovely to hear you give me that encouragement. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Edwina.